surviving. What other option is there? That's the
I
only
heard
option
that.
we have.
I heard that. We'll give everybody a little bit of time to jump on real quick. I
Okay.
appreciate you jumping on with us.
It's not a problem. My pleasure. My pleasure. How are you surviving?
Man, I got my 2-year-old running around. I'm trying to buy a house. I'm too much time, but not enough time all at the same time. If that
I
makes any sense.
know. I know. I was checking that out. I know you're from the college scene back to the high school scene and all of this stuff going on. But I like what you're doing, man. I really like it. It's
I
good stuff.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was with Doobie, so I got a lot of Pokey stories from back in the day.
Look. I should have signed an agreement before I did this. Don't tell all the folks. Look, Doobie's been in my life since I was 10 years old.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
She's a good,
She's
good woman.
Yeah, she's a big fan for sure, for sure. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Guys, thanks for y'all for joining us. Feel free, you can ask any questions in the comments below. I'll try to pin those. And also, they got a question box at the bottom. We got a couple questions in there already. That's going to be the easiest way for us to keep up with them. Coach, you want to just kind of introduce yourself. Biggest thing we want to talk about is like your journey, of course, and then open up for Q&A. Most people watching us are middle school, high school kids, student athletes, and college student athletes, a lot of coaches and stuff like that. Can you just kind of talk about your basketball journey?
Yeah, I can talk about that. I'll start with this about 3 decades of it. And it's funny that you talk about high school, college, and obviously the AAU circuit. You know, I think I got the start coaching in AAU, which was so fitting because I played with Charlie Domino, you know, with the New Orleans Dominoes, and that was my connection to Doobie. I coached with Stacy Goday, who was in the Hall of Fame at Tulane. So from an early age, I was surrounded by some great individuals who just loved the game. And then fast forward to playing at LSU, coaching at LSU with Coach Gunner, probably the most impactful person outside of my family and my mom in my life, and was fortunate enough to go to Europe and coach the likes of Diana Taurasi and Simone and Sylvia, Becky Hammond. And I think what was interesting was the next phase when I was able to coach a professional team and not only just coach that team, but be a general manager for the Chicago Sky expansion team and have some success there. And then as recently Indiana. So that sounds like a lot, but it was I don't know, it kind of shaped who I was. I got a better appreciation for everything that I'm going through right now.
No doubt. And those of you guys that don't know, Coach is from born and raised Louisiana, went to Honville High School. She had a pretty successful career at LSU, you know, was all-time leading assists, steals, All-American, and then she transitioned right into coaching. The question I want to lead off with, and then we'll get to some questions from them. You know, a lot of players have problems after the ball stops bouncing, and what are they going to do next? Can you talk about like how was that transition from basketball to coaching and kind of coaching the team that you basically played for and just kind of jumping right into that?
Right. You know, it's a little bit unique for me because of my age, you know, being some of these opportunities for players are so much more prevalent now. I think when I was getting ready to finish playing basketball, I wasn't thinking about coaching immediately. And I remember when the opportunity presented itself and Coach Gunner, you know, asked me to step on and be a GA, people were amongst the thinking of, you need to get a real job. You know, it wasn't the sexy job that it is right now. And so that part was unique for me. But as it relates to, you know, other people now in this day and age in 2020, and probably the last 10 years, there's so many more opportunities for these players to really go into coaching or not. Maybe it's not on the court in some form. They could be athletic trainers. They can be in mass communications. There's so many more opportunities that we didn't even think about. So for me, it's nice seeing how much our game has grown, but also how far we have to go.
For sure. That's great. That's awesome. Awesome to be able to share that with us, for sure. Again, guys, anybody that's jumping on, feel free. We're going to pin some comments. The easiest way to kind of get some questions in is through the question box, and we'll jump to some of those. It's a good one right here. Favorite Sue Gunner sideline story?
Oh, wow. Can you edit my commentary? No, I'm just joking. I won't say any bad words. I don't know if it's so many. It was just her antics. You know, I always marveled at how she could squat down, you know, in that squat, but the second she didn't agree with something that we were doing, she got up in a nanosecond. And she just had this way of motivating every single person. It was like you didn't want to disappoint your mother. And
Yeah.
even though she was your coach, and sometimes she would call us by some terms of endearment. But there's just so many. I like the fact that she would get fired up and she would get a technical foul, knowing that that would really get us going.
Yeah, and the story with Doobie, when we would go to Stephen F. Austin, Coach Gunner coached there, so they had like this little Hall of Fame type deal that was up at the very top, and we climbed the stairs all the way to the top. Every single year we went there for shoot around. It was always cool. She got really emotional, so I know how much she really meant to everyone, especially as you guys were coming up. So that's a really cool story for you to share with us. Let's get to some more. What we got? Can I read it? Well, let me read it. What's the biggest difference between coaching overseas and the WNBA?
Wow. I'll start with the way the game is played. I think some of my takeaways from Europe was it didn't matter if you were 6'5" or 5'5", you were handling the basketball. Just that skill set. I think in the States, we spend a lot of time on the defensive side of the ball, which is a good thing, the scouting aspect of it. But in Europe, the player development piece was everything. And I'm not talking about getting a personal trainer and learning the latest, I don't know, spin move. It was just that everyday grind in the weight room, in the gym by yourself. It was so good for so many of the American players to go over and see that you can be at the highest level, but those players were practicing on their ball handling, and the basic fundamentals of the game, which we're always talking about. So that was a big thing. The second thing was the pace of the game in Europe was a little bit ahead of us in terms of they were transition offense, and a lot of floor spacers. So I was fortunate enough to be able to take some of that to Chicago with
Yeah.
me. And I think it kind of helped me to have a little bit of success there.
Definitely space and pace is definitely kind of new to our game. But like you said, I mean, you were coaching over there. I mean, that was, I think, 10 years ago. So that's pretty cool that you were able to kind of see that on the forefront and kind of see that as it was coming on. I mean, basketball is all about trends and everything. That's pretty cool. You were able to kind of be a trendsetter more than anything.
No, you
What?
said it. You mentioned it. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine today about trends in the game, and that trickle down effect that goes NBA, NCAA men, then the WNBA, then college women. So if you can pull one of those trends and incorporate into your philosophy, it's going to buy you some time, buy you some success, buy you some
For
wins.
sure.
And so I was fortunate enough for that.
For sure. That was kind of, we talked about like trend setting, being ahead of the curve. We had talked about it at Nichols a lot. Doobie runs the matchup zone. We started icing ball screens and stuff like that to see a lot on the professional level. And I mean, that gave teams that were so successful in the pick and roll, especially out of the matchup, it gave them so many fits. It kind of was able to kind of shut them down. That's a pretty cool point. Let's jump back to some more questions. Again, guys, anybody's jumping on with us, feel free to ask any questions. Just click the question box at the bottom. What's the biggest change you've seen in the girls' game?
The biggest change is I think we're moving towards. There's a ton of them, but I think seeing players move towards more positionless basketball, and before it was kind of sexy to play multiple positions. Everyone bragged about, I can play 1, 2, or 3, but can you play them on both sides of the basketball?
Yep.
I like the fact that we haven't lost our excitement for the defensive side, and some of those players that can be shutdown players, allowing coaches to switch. You talk about icing, right? And then I guess about 3 years ago, the Golden State Warriors went to icing to switch. So
Yep.
that's the next thing people were starting to do. And so I think for the women's game, we're getting the pace and the space. Girls are working on their handles and their range, and that aspect of it. So I like to see that. There's not a lot of zone, standing still, 30 seconds, and that's okay if you need to win. I get that. I'm not taking that away, but we're picking up the pace on a lot of things.
Yeah, hopefully we can get this shot clock in the high school game here sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It got voted down this last time, but I think we're getting closer and closer.
I hope so. Fingers are crossed. My fingers are crossed for that one.
Let's get back to some more. Let's see. What is the best way to build your program? I'm
Wow.
guessing let's talk about college. I
Yeah.
guess you can kind of talk about college and professional with being a GM and
Yeah. You know, listen, we can pick many aspects of it, but everyone is going to fall back to the people that are in place
yeah.
to carry out your philosophy, to challenge your philosophy, to add to your philosophy. And picking those people because you've networked, because they trust you, because they challenge you. It starts with that. And I think that some of the easier things to do is the X's and O's become the easy part. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not rocket science. It's about having a big enough ego to say, hey, let me trim this down and not try to do 2 million things. Let me do about two. And sometimes when we're younger, guilty, I'll raise my hand. Look, man, you want to do everything, right? You're trying to do so much stuff, and you're like, and you figure it out. But I think in terms of building that program, it's just that foundation that's built on the stuff that we talk about all the time, the non-basketball stuff, the trust, the communication, the work ethic, being able to take the criticism. But also, I think, and I learned this from Coach Gunner, is that she was tremendous at listening. Oh my goodness. And not that I didn't appreciate it. I just thought it was the norm
Yeah, yeah.
until I was around other people. I'm like, oh, it doesn't work like this with everyone. So it was just those nuggets that you kind of take away and then you incorporate it into, the nuts and bolts of, look, you got to get some talent. Let's get real.
Yep.
We can communicate as much as we want, but if you can't play, you can't play.
For
So
sure.
that's the given. Get some players and we all become better coaches, right?
That's right. Jimmy's and Joe's make some good coaches.
Exactly.
Another question I got pinned here. What can be done to increase the overall quality of girls basketball in the state of Louisiana?
What you're doing right now is one. Just putting eyes on it. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you ask people, they don't know if these kids sign with Rutgers, someone's
Yep.
going A&M, Tulane, they're high level, and there's just a small window for coaches to see them. And so you have to have a vehicle like you're creating for our girls, not where they get lost in the shuffle, where I don't want to say lost in the shuffle, where their time is cut short
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many people going to and I think it's really about networking. And I also think that, you know, as coaches, we have to work harder. I mean,
Yeah.
we have a responsibility, myself included, not just at every level, to get better, not just during the pandemic because we can't do anything else. And we transfer that to those players and staying ahead of the game. So I think it kind of starts with that.
For sure. And I mean, touching back on that, you came down to Tulane and did the WBCA coaches clinic, and that was a free coaching clinic. And you would think that the stands would be packed. I mean, I think we had 20 something coaches that were at the high school level or lower. I mean, like, so we talk about, we always want our girls and stuff like that to put in the work. It comes down to little things like that, put in the work and getting better as a coach as well. That's a great point. And then we got to all communicate because different activities like this or free coaching clinics, like I bet a lot of people watching didn't even know about that. It's
No,
sad to say.
you're right. And then you think about it, Nell Fortner was there. She coached the Olympic team.
Yeah.
I mean, she had just gotten back into coaching at Georgia Tech. And I know they started off well. I can't remember how they were finishing up. But, I mean, Nell recruited me. And I'm sitting there thinking, there's Nell and Mickey DeMoss,
Yeah.
who recruited me when they were at Auburn, Olympic coach. And now she's here in New Orleans. So some of it is just getting the word out because I don't think
Yeah.
people were saying, "Oh, I'm just not going to go." Just gotta
Yep.
get the word out.
Exactly. I agree. Another question. Again, anybody that's jumping on, feel free. Ask any questions. Just click the question box at the bottom. We'll be here for another 15 minutes or so. Pin the question there. Best way to teach your leadership to your point guard. So, like you talked about that relationship that you had with Coach Gunner. Can you talk about how that leadership's kind of developed?
Yeah, I think it's in choosing some of those qualities that you can grow. That's number
Mm.
one, right? It's nice if they got the handles. You can improve the handles. It's nice if they got some range in their shot, but they have to have a thick skin because not that we want to be tough on them. It's just innate for us to go at the point guards. So I think that's it. But the second part of it is you have to show the way to those point guards in terms of how I am as a coach, because they're watching. How am I communicating with my staff, with the media, with other people? Because it's communication, right? Not just when I feel like it. So it's all those intangible things. Because look, I can drill how to snake a pick and roll, a step up screen. I can teach them how to probe the paint and look for the drift player. But I have to teach them in that moment. When I jumped when I get on you, right? How quickly can you recover? Because you
Yep.
have to know it's coming from a good place and you want to get back to that good place. So I think it's all those intangible things, and they have to know that you believe in them, not just by your words, but by your actions.
For sure. You and Coach Dewberry cut from the same cloth because as you're talking, I can visually see her jumping our junior and senior point guard. When she was a freshman, of course. She kind of started before us the whole way through. We went on to win the first conference championship in program history, but she would just jump her, get all up in her face. I'm sure spit was flying and everything else. She was like, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. I can visually see that. That's awesome.
Right.
Um, let's see. During your playing days, who was your favorite player to go head to head with?
My favorite player?
Yeah, who'd you like to go against?
Wow. Like in terms of challenge, or like because I can own them? Which one? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I would not say that publicly. Out of respect, I remember as a freshman going into LSU, there were some seniors who were so good. Like, many people don't remember this name, but Janetta Burns was a senior when I was a freshman, and she made me so good because she challenged me. She was like, "Who is this little kid from Hornville High School?" I mean, she gave me the business. And I think that prepared me because I looked forward to competing against Tennessee. And out of respect, because it didn't matter who wore that uniform, Pat Summitt had a certain way of her teams playing. So that was always the measuring stick. And that's what I love the most in my playing days.
I love it. I love it. We got a question here. I don't know who it's from. It says, please ask her what is a googie? Googie?
Oh, wow. That's just a family nickname that my sister and I share with someone. I think I know who's asking that question because my sister will publicly call me that. That's just a family term of endearment. That's all.
That's funny. That's funny. Again, guys, anybody that's jumping on with us, feel free, man. Ask any questions. The easiest thing is to click the question box at the bottom. We'll be here for another 10 minutes or so. Here's a pretty cool question. So you've seen a lot of basketball. Who's somebody that kind of reminds you of your game whenever you're coming up? Who's somebody that reminds you of your game?
Oh man, you should have sent me these questions earlier.
It's just
listen. Because there's not a lot of videotape, I can make myself a lot better than I was.
Hey,
because they can't pull the video on me. But listen, I don't know. That's a tough one because I wasn't really athletic. I was just smart, and I improved every year. I was that player in my freshman year that didn't really guard because I couldn't shoot great, but I kind of worked on it. But a player, I'm gonna have to come back to that one. That reminds.
All right.
Yeah, that's a tough.
That's all right.
That's a tough one.
Question I got. So born and raised Louisiana. Did you ever kind of consider anything other than LSU, or why did you pick LSU coming out of high school, going straight to LSU?
A lot of times early on, you always think the grass is greener somewhere else. You want to get away. I had the privilege of playing some USA basketball, so my mind was open to other things. And I'll be honest with you, I know a lot of times it's not about the person. It's about the opportunity to play and build a program. But back in the day, Sue Gunner sealed the deal for me.
Yeah.
And maybe she wasn't for everyone, but she was so open and honest about what she would do for me. And the basketball was the easiest part. Of course, I'm going to make you better, but I'm going to make you make this world better. And it challenged me in a way that reminded me of my mother. And it wasn't always nice. I didn't really understand it, but I respected it. And so when it got down to it, it was Louisiana Tech and LSU.
Yeah.
And Tech was a powerhouse. And then I thought about wanting to go somewhere where I can help build something and not just go through. And that's a respectful statement to Louisiana Tech.
For sure.
Sue just did it for me. She did it for me.
For sure. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that at the end of the day, when people are making these decisions on colleges, a lot of impact goes to that coach. Like whenever you're recruiting these players and stuff like that, like a lot of that goes to that coach. You don't necessarily always dream of a university, but you really connect to like the people, and people kind of make the place. So
Right.
kind of like in that, again, we got a lot of middle school and high school kids that will be watching this. Is there any advice you can kind of give them as they're going through this process of basketball, whether it's the recruiting process or life after basketball, using basketball instead of basketball, using you? You kind of talk about that?
Yeah, and it's different. I think middle school is where so much is going to be defined for some of those players at the next level. Will I hit a growth spurt? Am I going to love this at the level that's necessary to get that scholarship? And I think that's why it's so important, like what you're doing and exposing them at an early age so they understand the opportunity is everything. And I love that. But some of the advice would be just getting the exposure, making the connections and networking, because nobody's going to sell you better than you sell yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about just a highlight video. I'm talking about being communicative at that early age when you don't really want to be, being a sponge and soaking everything up. And of course, every coach, every person is going to tell you to work on your game, but be intentional. Like, I tell players all the time, you know what you're not good at, right? You may not want to admit it, but like, help the coach out, help yourself out, and work on that. And it's just about the discipline of that and not being afraid. One of the things I would tell people all the time is like, listen, it's not a negative thing to use people. I use everybody in my life to get what I need. And it might just be someone that's going to look me in the face and say, Pokey, look, I love you, but that's not cool. Just to get you on track or let you
Yeah.
know what you have to do. And I think that's a big part of it because the basketball piece is easy. You have to put the ball in the hoop. You got to learn how to pass, fundamentals. It's everything else.
Yeah, no doubt. Now is the perfect time to start that communication, man. Like we did a lot of interviews with different college coaches and stuff like that. And everyone was talking about, every email that comes through, every DM, all kinds of stuff like that. Like they're looking at it and they're starting to build that process. I think the thing that we've got to do as, people of our game, students of our games, we've got to go out and we got to go to these games and watch these games. And you hit up a coach saying, hey, look, I'm bringing a whole team, or hey, my daughter wants to come see a game. If you reach out to that coach, they're going to get you free tickets. They're going to possibly invite you to the locker room. You can stay after, all kinds of stuff like that. We just got to do a better job of getting our girls out in front of that and giving those opportunities.
You're right. Exposure. That's everything.
We had a couple questions, if you can touch on it a little bit. Kind of like talking about the direction of the WNBA. We got the new collective bargaining agreement, which is a step in the right direction. How do you see the league in general, and how do you see it growing? A lot of people don't realize how young it is. The NBA merged with the ABA back in the day. Like the WNBA is so young, so it's still growing and constantly growing. Can you talk about the I guess projection of the league?
Yes, I'm glad you made that statement because so many people want the WNBA to be 80 years in or
Yeah.
100 years in. Um, and it's growing. Obviously, you want more, but logistically, financially, there's things that slow that process down. You mentioned the collective bargaining agreement. I think that's a step in the right direction. But with that is going to come some changes or some changes going to need to come. You're not going to be able to play a 34 game season. There's going to need to be more games, maybe move into a traditional type season
Yep.
because, it's that window that the WNBA plays in. Look, you have the best players in the world,
Yep.
but if they're not on television, if they're not promoted, then you're going to get to that ceiling of things. But I know that David Stern wanted this to start. Adam Silver wants it to succeed. He understands it. And part of it is maybe it's not directly, but, several years ago when the NBA went out and went global, from dealing with everyone around the world, that's revenue streams to help the WNBA because they understand it's in its infancy. It's also, helps with other programs to help grow the league and grow its players want to be a part of it. But I think the league is obviously needs some injection, especially with this pandemic. It's going
Yes.
to suffer. But the leaders wanted to succeed, and I think it will for sure.
No doubt. Again, guys, anybody's jumping on, feel free to ask any questions Easiest way is just asking a little question box at the bottom. We'll be here for another 5 minutes or so. Let me scroll through some. I guess we kind of talked about that. Oh, someone said they miss you at coaching at LSU. All right, here's a good one. What is the greatest lesson you learned in coaching?
Greatest lesson I've learned in coaching. Um, that's that's not hard. Um, you know, and you're still learning every day. And we think we know this. You learn how impactful you can be in someone's life, like teachers. Everyone has that favorite teacher, and it's not because they were nice and let them stay extra at recess or something like that. But it's just the life lessons that you are instilling in some of these players. You don't take it for granted, and sometimes it supersedes so much else. And I think that's one of the things that taught me how you can be so impactful through this vehicle. Why not be that impactful in other areas of your life? It doesn't have to just be a coach. You can
No
be the head
doubt.
coach in your family. You can be the head coach in your friendships. If you give it that time and attention to detail, is one of the things that in my older years, I'm starting to realize.
That's very powerful, man. That's a very powerful message. We got a good little question here. Someone asked about, have you ever suffered a serious injury? How did you handle the recovering process, or any advice to anyone going through some type of injury? ACLs are very common in girls basketball. Is there any type of advice you can kind of give someone struggling with that?
Yeah, I was lucky. I didn't have any of that. Broken nose and thumb, really easy stuff. Didn't have to miss a lot of games. I think the you talk about ACL because it's everything. If you go into it at your healthiest, that helps the recovery time, obviously. But I think so much with these kids with the ACL, it's that fourth month of rehabbing when everyone goes back to their normal life. They're not showing up to help you and cheer you on. That's when you have to be willing to dig deep within yourself, but also dig deep and say, look, I'm struggling right now. I may look like I'm okay, but I'm struggling, and just trusting that process and leaning on people that's been there for you, because you're going to get that motivation from so many different areas. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, anybody that's struggling with that, there are a lot of girls that have gone through that process. Just reach out to myself or anybody, and we can kind of connect you with somebody that's gone through that, and they can give you real life experience at the end of the day. Feel free to lean on anybody, like you said, advice or anything.
Right.
Um, let's see. Who's the smartest point guard you've ever coached? Being a point guard, I'm sure you're pretty hard on your PGs. Who's the smartest point guard?
Listen, you're going to get me in trouble because I coached a lot of them. But this is a safe one. Listen, Sue Bird, unbelievable.
That's a safe one.
She's Rain Man. She remembers everything. We could play a team in Poland, Russia, Turkey. She's going to remember what they ran right before the half, how they guard the pick and roll on the side, where the rotation is coming from. And coaches don't like to admit this. I learned so much from Sue Bird,
Wow.
because she was already in Russia. So I got a quick lesson on how the Europeans guarded certain things from Sue and Diana. But she's the smartest, for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Another question. So, of course, it kind of relates to you. You were always playing up, whether it was in high school, played early, freshman going through. You played a lot of games as a freshman, as LSU and on through. What advice can you give a young student athlete that's looking to play or are going to have an opportunity to play early on in her high school career as a freshman or even an eighth grader?
Yeah, look, first of all, that opportunity exists, and then someone recognizes it. They're not going to, they're not expecting perfection. Okay, they're just expecting you to trust them. They're giving you trust in the wheel to understand. But here's the deal: your teammates may not understand that. They're seniors and they're trying to win. And I think the biggest thing is understanding when you don't know it all, or you can't get it right. It's that bounce back effect. You got to remind yourself, hey, I'm a freshman. They need me. They're not doing this for me because I'm the principal's daughter or I don't know, whatever, a booster's niece. I have a, you gotta look, you gotta have self-talk. You gotta
For
remind
sure.
yourself. And And that's the reminder that you need, and just keep working on that because you're in a small group of people.
For sure. That's big time advice. And I know a lot of kids, especially in Louisiana, we get the opportunity, seventh graders, we see seventh graders all the time playing in high school, and eighth graders coming up, ninth graders, they're really nervous. And to kind of see somebody that's kind of gone through it in yourself, can you talk a little bit more in detail of, like, again, born and raised in Louisiana, a lot of girls are watching this, and I'll kind of cut some clips and stuff so more people can see. Just in closing, can you kind of talk about the opportunity that you've had? And it's really limitless. Like, you started from Huntsville, went to LSU, the WNBA, Final Fours in college, coached overseas, Team USA, the whole 9 yards. Can you kind of talk about, I guess, those footsteps?
Yes, it's so easy, and the basketball stuff is always documented, and it should be, you know. And sometimes I don't think about stuff. You mentioned, I always mention AAU
Yeah.
because that was in New Orleans. I mentioned Stacy Gode because I wanted to wear number 10 back then because she wore number 10, and I watched how she played. And she went to Tulane. You talk about Doobie, who went to Southeastern. All these people who were so important but really hard on me. And you fast forward, USA basketball, even opportunity to play but also coach.
Yep.
The LSU piece and having success there as a player and a coach. But everyone's not going to have that opportunity. That's a small percentage, right? I also think about going to Europe and coaching in Russia and learning to speak Russian and learning to appreciate other cultures, and a reminder of how good we have it here. It's like,
Yep.
on our worst day, it's pretty damn good, right? And
No
they don't
doubt.
know. They don't know that. So a lot of times, I'm not talking about Sue Bird and Diana and Sylvia and Simone. I'm talking about the opportunities that we have. Maybe you're not the point guard that's good enough to get the scholarship or drafted, but you have so many opportunities to network and be an intern somewhere, and there's programs that are paid for. Like, go get it. And
Yep.
if you don't know it exists, ask for it. I'm open all the time, and I say that to people. They think I'm like, dude, I'm Ama. I'm from Ama. I'm from St. Joe's Parish. Like, I didn't do anything special. I was fortunate enough to be able to play, get better, and surround myself with quality people who really took care of me and challenged me. And I don't mean to make it sound simple, but it really is simple. If
No
you
doubt.
know what you're looking for, and if you
No
use what
doubt.
you have to get what you need.
Exactly. And, I think with the whole pandemic and everything, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but, Texas and Florida and all these states are opening up, and AAU is going to start coming back. I think having it kind of basketball taken from everyone, and then it's going to be given back a few months later, I think they can kind of realize and relate to what you're saying. Very, very here in the near future, and kind of, I think everyone's going to be pedaled to the metal going forward. Coach, I really appreciate you spending this time with us. This has been great insight, and I mean, all kinds of great stories. If you need anything from us, man, feel free to reach out.
I
I
will.
love what you've done, and being able to kind of get you on here and show our girls just, the peak of what this basketball game can really kind of lead you. You want to
No.
leave us with anything else?
No, yeah, it's. I want to leave it with what you're doing. You coached in college. You have a peek into it. You chose a route that you wanted to, and you're giving back because they deserve it. You talk about what you deserve, and these girls deserve the opportunity to have the exposure, to have the expertise, yours, mine, or anyone else, to create some more opportunities for them. So thank you. And if I can ever be of help, I'm just a phone call away. So
I
use me.
appreciate that. I appreciate that, Coach. I'm gonna have to hold you to that. I'm gonna have to lock you in. So I got you.
I mean it. I mean it. I mean that. And good luck to you with everything.
I appreciate it, Coach. Thank you, man. If you need anything my way, let me know.
I will. Take care, Chris.
Thank you.
Ciao.